So you know that I've always been so struck with how you have put out one book right after the other and gotten a major publisher and go around talking about your books, and that's what you're doing now here with me. So let us talk about your books. What was the first book about?
The first book is called The Rules of Normal Eating.
Okay.
And it's published by Gers Books, which is an eating disorders publisher. Very dear and wonderful people. And it just sets out the rules. Eat when you're hungry, choose foods that satisfy you, eat with awareness and with an eye towards pleasure, and stop when you're full or satisfied. And
simple rules, but
simple but not easy. I always say,
yeah.
You know, it's, if it were easy, I'd be out of a job. But they're simple and basic, and they are how people eat intuitively who don't have eating problems. But I write with a lot of humor, so all the chapters have a title and then a subtitle, like a subtitle on the chapter on change might be, "Can it happen while I'm sleeping?"
Please.
Please, please. And I do that with all my books. So that was the first book. And
then the next book
is, well, I realized that people were stuck, they weren't able to use the rules consistently because of emotions.
Right.
And so I wrote a book called The Food and Feelings Workbook, which is all about why we have feelings. And as I always say as an aside, is you mean they're not just there to plague us and make us miserable. They're our inner guides. And I take 7 feelings that are difficult for dysregulated eaters and talk about how we know when we're feeling them. There are exercises throughout the book that people can do. And it's a great workbook. You know, I've had people who run groups ask if they can use parts of the exercises. They really get to know yourself.
Yeah, I've certainly recommended that to a lot of my eating dysregulated clients.
Yeah. So that book, and then the third book is what every therapist needs to know about treating eating and weight issues. Actually, W.W. Norton Books came to me and asked if I could write a book for therapists, not on the severe end of eating disorders, anorexia, severe bulimia, but if you're a general practitioner, what do you need to know? What do you need to look for? What are the approaches you can use? So I wrote that book, and it's a little, I guess it's a little more formal. And then
So that's for clinicians.
That's for clinicians, although I do have, I do know people who have eating problems who've read it because they want to see how their clinician is going to handle them. So it's interesting. And then the fourth book, Nice Girls Finish Fat, Put Yourself First and Change Your Eating Forever.
I loved that title when you first told me about it. And
Everybody
you're the one
chuckles.
who created the title.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I was actually at a trauma workshop just doodling, and I came up with that, and I was delighted with the title. And Simon & Schuster is the publisher, Fireside Books, so I loved working with them. And after I wrote What Every Therapist Needs to Know, I started to think about, well, you know, why else are people getting stuck? And I have mostly women clients, and I thought, these are just the nicest bunch of women I ever met. And if you ask them about themselves, you know, tell me about yourself, they'll say, well, I'm really nice. And I started to see this theme of niceness. And
would you say they're caretakers?
Well, yeah, very caring, nice to everyone else, and then they treat themselves with food. And so the book is written in a sort of sassy tone, and there's a nice girls test in it, which people like to take. And
people usually come out with a high score. And then
yeah, some do, some do. Or like I'll get an email from my sister and I took it and I'm nice and she isn't. So some people have eating issues, but it's not about being too nice. But I get emails from people and calls from people, and they say, oh, I read this book, I thought you were writing about me. I thought you've been watching me my whole life. So what I do is help people learn the skills they need to add to niceness. You don't want to take away niceness, but you want to know when you want to take care of yourself rather than the other person.
Right. So learn that old maxim about setting limits and boundaries. Right?
Boundaries, limits, saying no, taking time out for yourself. So many of these women were brought up that if they put attention on themselves, they're being too proud and
or selfish.
Proud and selfish, but they don't use the what they call the P word, you know, the pride word, because it feels negative. So they're always giving because they feel if they do something for themselves and they're proud of it, that it's shameful, which is really backwards. And yes, the whole selfish, a lot of them had mothers who maybe were selfish, so they didn't want to be like them, or mothers who were selfless, and so they were the role models. And I find women do really well with this book. You know, they're really able to learn how to say no. You know, I'll work with a client, I do a lot of phone therapy, and I'll say, well, say no once this year.
Yeah.
I mean, this week. And they'll do that.
Yeah, and it's probably a whole new experience.
Yes, but it's transformative because the more you say it, the more you realize the world will not, you know, fall down around you.
Yeah.
And then the less stressed you are, the more time you have, the less likely it is you're going to eat. So,
Karen, so before you go on, I just want to have us show a few pictures of you because I know you go around giving talks about this.
Yes, I do.
Especially about your newest book, Nice Girls Finish Fat. So here's some pictures of you on the screen that we have of your giving talks at local bookstores. And
yes, that one was in Sarasota. That was a Nice Girls Finish Fat.
And that's something you enjoy doing, huh?
I do book talks. I do workshops. Hopefully, I got contacted by a woman in England who's doing a teleseries with experts in different area. So I hope to do that. I have a website. I run a message board. I blog twice a week.
Yeah.
So I do like to get out there and speak.
People can access you very easily online.
Very easily. Yeah, and I have a small practice in Sarasota, but I do teletherapy all over the world. And so I like to, put myself out there. It's my mission in life. It really is. And I'm so fortunate that I enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I really,
and you're one of
passion.
These people, exactly, you're one of these people who's passionate about what she does.
Absolutely.
And as you said before, about writing, too. And that's a place where you really feel, you know, that you can resonate with what you're doing and you're completely sort of concentrating and focused on that, and you can probably lose yourself in it.
Absolutely. Right? And as you said that, I think to myself, it sounds so corny, but the things that I do in doing therapy and writing are very similar because you draw, you know, from inside. It's, if this feels like what I was always meant to do. I can't imagine doing anything different. Yeah,
you probably didn't think of yourself like this when you were in the throes of your eating disorder.
No, and I was an elementary school teacher. I was an administrator. I did so many things. I worked in advertising. You know, I didn't think that this is what I would be doing. And you know, it's sort of getting to this point and saying, "Oh, this is fun." You know, it's a joy.
Yeah. Yeah, and you and I joke sometimes about being an Energizer bunny.
Yeah.
So I see you as being my favorite Energizer bunny.
Well, and it's funny because I look to you that way, that you're always into a new project.
I know, and that's what makes life really fun, huh?
Yes, that's how you stay alive.
Exactly.
Internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Karen, we are at the end of our time here.
Well, this was delightful. I had a good time.
I appreciate your doing this for me, and I think a lot of people are going to like watching.
I hope so, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest on this show.
Sure. Okay, so join us next time where I'm going to bring a new person to you next week, and come again to see Alivelihood, New Adventures as We Age.